You're listening to The Art of Imperfect Adulting. I'm your host, Amy Stone. Here, I share stories from real people navigating the adventure that I call adulting. Are you ready? Me too. Let's do this. Hello, friends. Today, I'm going to introduce you to my friend, Maggie. And we talk about boundaries, tough boundaries. And this is not some sort of theoretical academic convo. This is a story about a real person who looked at her very real life and said to herself, enough. Something has to change. So, if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's do it. Maggie, welcome to The Art of Imperfect Adulting.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. Are you ready to chat?
I'm ready.
Let's
Yes.
do it. All right. I begin every single question, every single interview by asking people what part of the world they are talking to me from. So, where are you on the big blue marble?
I'm currently in Denver, Colorado. I've
Very
moved
nice.
around a lot. I've traveled a lot. But yeah, currently in Colorado.
Very nice. You love the mountains.
I prefer the beach actually, but I do love the mountains. And I was coming from Minnesota, and so it's really flat there. So coming to the mountains is like you never get sick of it, when you look out your window every day and they're just huge and yeah, so it's nice.
Very, very nice. Very nice. All right. So I love to learn about people's background as just a connection tool between you and meeting the audience. Tell us about your life outside of work. This can be anything. We're going to talk about, personal connections today. So anything, favorite hobby, pets, whatever you want to share.
So yeah, I live with my roommate and she has a dog named Olive and I'm a big dog person, so I love Olive and she just makes us happy in the household. And then other than that, I love the performing arts. So I love dancing, I love singing, I love acting. I just went line dancing for the first time like 2 weeks ago now. And I didn't know that I would love it as much as I did. So yeah, I also Latin dance and I used to do ballet. So yeah, I love dancing and I love the performing arts. And yeah.
Very nice. So, pets, dancing, arts, all good things. All right. So, now we're going to get to the topic of the day, which is setting boundaries and going no contact with people in our life. Does that sound like something you'd like to talk about?
Yes.
Let's do it. So, let's start by backing all the way up to when you were younger. So, like really young, like 5, 6, 7, 8. Tell us a little bit about your family life as a kid and what your family looked like then.
Yeah, so I had my mom and my dad, and then three siblings, one younger than me, two older than me. And then eventually my parents got divorced, and I got two stepbrothers, so that was nice from my mom who got remarried. But yeah, growing up, I would say like, oh man, so many things I could say.
Absolutely.
I saw one time it's like, do you want the Disney version or do you want the Jerry Springer version? Like, which one do you want? Um,
My favorite thing about Jerry Springer is that he was like a local politician in, I think, Ohio. Like, so he's famous for his talk show, but he was also like a active, productive member of his community. I might have some of the details wrong there, but he's an interesting guy. And this is definitely
yeah,
not the Jerry Springer show, and that's not my intention is never to bring stories out just for their flash value. But I am a person who happens to believe like one of the things that is a philosophy in my life is that one, and my story is that bringing into alignment and integrity the past versions of myself that weren't actually up to me, but that I
mm,
definitely experienced with who I am and how I show up as an adult can be tricky, can be a little bit embarrassing at times, but is important to really being able to live as a happy person.
yeah, no, 100%. So in that way, I guess like the best way I can explain it is like I was born an empath, like a highly sensitive person. So coming to into a family where um, you know, my dad was abusive, and there were certain narcissistic dynamics at play, and I just felt everyone's pain like all the time. Like there was just a
Yeah.
lot going on in the family. And I was just like I remember I saw Perks of Being a Wallflower when I was a freshman in high school. And at the end, he says, like, how do you stop seeing it? He's talking to the doctor, the main character. And she was like, stop seeing what? And he's like, everyone's pain all the time. Like, how do you just stop seeing it? And that was the first time where I was like, oh my God, like, someone understands me. Like, someone finally puts it into words. So that's really, I feel like growing up, I just felt like I knew too much, I felt too much, and there was nothing I could do. Like, I'm this little girl.
That's right.
And yeah, and on the other side of that, I think, you know, being a sensitive person and being also like a shining light. Like, I think I was just born like the sunshine and born like the entertainer, the performer that I am. And I think that wasn't always welcomed either. So often I was like the scapegoat and the one that was like weird or different or wanted to be alone or didn't fit in, or like the easy person to put everything onto.
Okay.
Or like they would say, why are you causing problems? But it was like, I'm just the only one who's seeing all of this toxicity and who's trying to express it. So like, but being made to feel like I was the problem for bringing it up, or for having that awareness. So yeah, there was a lot of that growing up, I would say.
Yeah, that sounds like Darvo, which is a manipulation tool where you make the person who is the victim, you try to put the responsibility on them, and it doesn't feel good for the person. All right, so you had what, in lots of ways, can be considered a traditional family, two parents. Sounds like there was divorce, some remarriage, some blending, some step family, all of those things, which makes you a typical modern family, even though
Hmm.
if you were to listen to most people, they would be like, oh, well, that's like not normal, but it is normal. It is very, very normal. We just still
Yeah.
marginalize it. So
Hmm.
so before we talk about boundaries and no contact, let's put this into a container for the audience and really be upfront and talk about what it means, because it's not going to mean the same thing in every situation or to every single person. But when you think about it in your mind, what are you thinking about when you talk about putting boundaries between you and people in your life,
Hmm.
or going no contact? What does that mean to you?
For me, like it really means going no contact, like fully not speaking to the person, like fully cutting them out, like cold turkey. At least that's what I needed to do for me, for my situation. Like maybe every situation is different. But at least initially I needed to be like 100% no contact. Um, and I think, you know, for me, like what led to that decision in terms of boundaries was it came to a point where, the abuse got to be so much that I was like, enough is enough. Like, I can't take this anymore. And I think for so long, um, I was made to feel weak. And again, like I was the problem. And so when you're manipulated like that, you just keep thinking, oh, they're right. Like, I should be punished. I am wrong. I am the problem. So you don't stick up for yourself, because you don't think that you have the right to. You believe what they're saying. But I think finally I woke up and I was like, no, this is not right. Like, I can finally see that this is not right and no one should be treated this way. And so for me, it just took that like waking up to, wait a minute, like, no. So, and then I just went full no contact. But yeah.
All right. So I know that and you talked a little bit about this. I'm going to push a little deeper on this. Some parts of the story are deeply personal, and a lot of parts of the story, anytime we talk about family, we hit a wall where we're talking about things that involve other people that's not really our story to share. So
Mm-hmm.
that's not what I'm asking. But if you can, the people out there that are listening are like, all right, so what would the issues be that make somebody make this decision? What were some of the things, if you can give them sort of a title or a label, that were going on in your life and your situation that were saying this cannot continue. It's not healthy for me. This is where I need to set a boundary.
Yeah, good question. I think for me, like what ultimately ended up happening was, I in the summer of 2023, I moved to New York, or that was the plan because I was like, oh, I'm going to go on Broadway. I'm going to do the whole thing, like be the performing artist. And I'm originally from like northeastern Pennsylvania, which is like 2.5 hours from the city. So, there was always that dream. And one of my family members was living there at the time. And so I went to stay with them. And after 1 week, they completely like blindsided me and said, like, you have 1 week to get out, basically. And like at this time, like I had quit my job and like, I only had a certain amount of money and I was still looking for apartments and all this stuff. So I just couldn't believe that like my own family member would kick me out knowing that I was at such like a vulnerable point. And it ended up being because they were mad or upset that like I didn't tell them that I had quit my job. But I didn't tell them because I didn't want it to be a whole thing, like a whole drama. It was already stressful enough for me. So the fact that like they would do that just because they were mad I didn't tell them something, I was just like, okay, like this is not this is not okay. And I think like this had, been coming for a while. And so again, I think it was the narcissistic abuse and just constantly being the scapegoat, and being made to feel wrong for everything I did. Like just my mere existence was not okay. Like everything I felt, everything I said, everything I did was like to be punished. And I grew up in Catholic school and my family, we're Irish Catholic. And so it just like felt like that a lot of my life where you're that little Catholic school girl and you're constantly being told, no, you're too this, you're too that, you're too sensual or sexual, or you're too just a human being, you're too messy, like whatever it is, it's like you're just too much. And so I think it was just always feeling like I was too much and just wrong for just being who I am. And actually, like the best way I can describe it, which like what led me to this decision was I had like a dream like a couple of months ago, and I was at the carnival and I was like kind of tied up to be like a spectacle. And people were constantly like throwing tomatoes at me and pointing at me and laughing at me. And then my friend, who I've learned like unconditional love from, she came and she like took me down and she just like led me off into the sunset into a field of people who were just full of unconditional love and acceptance. And I feel like that's like the best way I can describe how I felt growing up and with my family, was constantly being just like my head should be down. I should feel so much shame and guilt. Um, and then, yeah, yeah.
All right. So this is setting boundaries, setting firm boundaries is something that people struggle with like across the board. When we
Yeah.
come to estrangement or going no contact, this is something that a portion of the audience is not going to understand because they've never been in a position to where this decision would make sense. It might seem very strange to some people that things would be happening in your life that you would make this decision. And so I want to give this a little bit of context and research. There was a survey conducted, a big survey by a group called Pillimer. I think that's how we say that. I don't know. And they are a research firm that specializes in family dynamics. They estimate that 27% of adults at some point will go no contact or experience estrangement from a family member. And so this is a part of family dynamics that if you don't have it in your life, go you, yay. But if you do, like, you shouldn't feel like you're not, there's something necessarily horrible about what you've done. And I want to share that to give perspective, because when we talk about marginalized groups within families, there's a lot of social pressure that a family should look like the fairy tale. And the truth is that very few families do. So, how long ago? So, I just wanted to throw that in there as context, because representation and context can be really helpful for people. How long ago is it from now that you began making these changes in your life?
Yeah, it's been so like it was, I think, August of 2023, and now it's February of 2025. So about like a little
13
over a
months.
year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So, that's new. That's still pretty fresh.
yeah, and I also want to touch on that too, like what you said, because when I first went no contact, I felt so much shame for it. And I didn't want to really tell anyone because I was like, they're going to think I'm messed up. They're going to think, oh, she doesn't know how to be in relationships, or, well, what part does she play in it? Or like, is she into like toxic relationship? Like, I just felt like people wouldn't really understand, you know? So
Yeah.
there was a lot of shame, but now, like, on the other side, I've, changed and grown so much for the better because of it, and love myself so much more because of it, that I feel grateful. It's like kind of a full circle moment to be able to come on here and be like you said, like the representation, like it's okay if this is you. And, like there's that saying that says, like, it ran in my family until it ran into me,
Yeah.
so there's like that ancestral trauma and just toxicity, and it takes that one person to decide to break it.
To break it. And sometimes, and that doesn't look like it looks in a Hallmark movie, right? So in a Hallmark movie, the person gets upset and they look at the other person, they're like, you need to change yourself and you need to leave, right?
Hmm.
And in real life, when there's conflict in a family, when you look at somebody and say, you need to leave, they're like, no,
Yeah.
I'm staying.
Yeah.
And so, like, and so the burden is on the person who wants to make the change to actually make the change, which is a really, really tough reality for a lot of people. And
Yeah.
I laugh at that. Every time I see it portrayed in like the media, it's like, well, you should leave. And they do. And I'm like, what? Who does that? That is not how
Yeah.
this, that is not how I've ever heard this working.
Right.
All right. So, what were you hoping, like when you made this change? It sounds like this was something you did with some intention and also some urgency. But what did you have any sense of what you were hoping would change for you by making this change in how you interacted with people in your life?
That is such a good question. Because no, not at all. Like, not at all. I had no idea what was to come and all the transformation that transpired after. I just knew that in that moment, I couldn't take it anymore and I was done. And so I left, but like I had absolutely no idea what was going to happen. Yeah,
All right. So you were at a point where it didn't matter what was happening. You had to make the change. This is the jumping out of a burning building scenario. Like all
yeah,
you can deal with is the fact that you can't stay there anymore. You've got to leave.
exactly.
And then people, it's the same kind of thing. People are like, well, there's no good end to jumping out of the building. So why would
Yeah,
you do that? And the answer is because where you were is such a horrible thing.
exactly.
So what did you feel like you were giving up, or putting at risk when you put this into action? Like what were your fears that were running through your head that were going to happen?
I thought that they were going to be mad at me again and be like, "Why are you doing this?" Like I just thought it was going to be immediately met with like, "You're causing a whole problem," like as always. Um, and I thought like that I would lose some comfort, but I came to realize after that that wasn't really comfort. Like, it felt familiar and it was the family I grew up with, and but in the end it wasn't actually my home. It wasn't actually what comforted me. It was what gave me trauma. I think, like, I was really close with my sister, and it makes me emotional, like, and my mom. um so I felt like kind of sad to lose best friends, like what felt like best friends, and people who really I could be my full self around. And I still feel that way with my sister. Like, I still do miss her. So it's not like, like, there are layers to it. And my
Yeah.
mom, I went like a maybe a month or two without talking, but we do still talk like regularly, and we have a phone call. We try to, like, every couple weeks, because I think it was just I felt so alone, like I didn't have anyone. And I do love my mom, and she's been through so much, and a lot of what happened was because she went through trauma. And so a lot of it, this is, there's no excuse, and you have to deal with things, but I had so much empathy and love for her, and I just felt like I still needed that in my life, like that stability and that love from my mom and that contact with my mom. So yeah, I don't talk to like anyone else, but I do still talk to my mom. And I think what I was, yeah, afraid of losing out on at the time was just like certain closeness and comfort that I had from my family.
Yeah, and you touch on something that is a topic that I read about frequently, which is that it can be confusing
Mhm.
to separate actual comfort and security from a dangerous situation that is just known. Like, so there are theories that people will choose something that is familiar and known to them, even if it's not good for them.
Yeah.
And so that can be confusing. And when we talk about breaking and changing habits.
Yeah.
So what were some of the challenges as you made this decision that you remember that would be not to dwell on how hard it is, but from the context of people who are thinking about doing it in a similar situation. So like what were some of the challenges right afterwards?
Yeah, I think not having a support system necessarily. So I think having friends or having a community can be really important when you're going through something like this. And luckily, like I did have friends, and my roommate is one of my best friends, and she was there for me. And when I moved to Colorado, the stars aligned, and I ended up moving with someone who was so nice to me and really took me in and was unconditionally loving. So, but I think like if I was fully on my own, that would have been hard. And then I think financially too, like when you're completely on your own and you have to learn how to be independent, like you have no one you can lean on. So you have to really like pull yourself up and be like, okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to make this work? Like I can't talk to anyone. I can't ask for help. I have to figure all of this out on my own. And that brings a lot of strength, but at first that's really hard. And then I would say like the last thing is just the emotions, like I went after going no contact, like I went through such depression and anxiety and darkness because this is at that time it was 25 years of trauma, and you have to undo that and reconcile and figure that out within yourself. And so I think giving yourself grace and knowing that like it's okay, it's normal if you feel so many emotions or depressed or whatever you feel is completely okay because this is something completely different.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a challenge to navigate the emotions as well.
I can only imagine. I think that that is really helpful that you shared that. And I think that it's clear that this was a tough decision to make. Were you putting all of the responsibility on yourself? Were you directing all of this into like, was there a layer of this where you were thinking, if I was better and if I was more and if I was correct, that I wouldn't have to do this?
I think maybe at the beginning, again, because that was the trauma and the abuse for
Yeah.
so long is if I was better, if I was this, if I was that. But I don't think that lasted very long. And I
Okay.
think at that point, it was the breaking point where I, again, like I woke up to it and I was like, no, like it's not me actually. But yeah, there's definitely for sure layers of that. Definitely.
Okay, so and thank you for sharing that. All right, so there are some deeply personal elements of this, and I want to make sure I say thank you for being brave and courageous to share this with other people. What are some of let's flip it forward and talk about some of the good stuff. What are some of the good things that you are happy to share that have really changed in your life or how you feel now as a result of having done this?
I mean, honestly, it completely changed my life for the better. Like it was the turning point of my whole life. And like it just like completely transformed me. And I would say like it just the self-love that I feel now, like the true self-love. And again, like sometimes it takes a while to unlearn, but I only really was brought good by it, and strength within myself, love within myself. Um, and realizing like who I am, like I get to say who I am and I get to love myself. Like you don't get to tell me who I am and tell me I'm wrong and all this stuff. So it's a journey. Like I don't want to say like it's every day, it keeps getting better and better. But to look back a year and a half ago to where I am now is like just a world of difference.
Yeah.
And I think I feel now that I can really burst open and be the light and love that I am and be myself without constantly worrying about being bashed for it or like I think in the past I was hiding and just trying to be so small so that I wouldn't get in trouble or so that I wouldn't or I'm trying to cater myself or people please or be a certain way so that I don't get criticized, you know? But now I think it's like the opposite of that. I'm like, I'm here to fully burst open to who I really am, who I really came to be, like who I really came to serve, and my gifts and my love and light and all these things that like I'm not hiding anymore. Like I just want to take up space and be who I am, and I no longer care what they think. I no longer care what they're going to say because I'm stronger now and I care about myself and I love myself and I found good people who love me and care about me. So I think, yeah, honestly, it's just like strength and self love, and feeling like you can't mess with me anymore. I know who I am and I love myself and I'm good, you know?
That is really good. I would say in my experience, not with your particular issue, people can still say things. Like
Hmm.
so, right, especially in the very modern world where we live, like total strangers, not even people we care about, will say things to you online, and the more visible you are, the more it happens. It's just that when you have good boundaries and good self-confidence, if you're not tired and hungry and in a bad
Yeah,
mood, you can usually be like, all right, well, you do you, boo, but
yeah,
whatever. That's you over there, and I'm going to continue being me myself over here. Not
exactly.
that it doesn't always, not that it doesn't sometimes hurt. Okay, so in a second we're going to do the final fun questions, but I want to give you a chance to directly tell the audience what you do these days and how they can find you online to connect.
Yeah, I mean, I love the topic that we covered today because I feel like a lot of my work is like the anecdote to a lot of this. So, um, yeah, I just opened my own business in January. It's called
Brand new.
Yeah, yeah. So it's called Maggie's Soul. The website is www.maggie, Maggie, dash soul, SOL.com. And yeah, like I really feel like because I went no contact and because I had this year and a half of transformation, that's what led me to the point where I could open my business because I felt strong enough and confident enough and loved myself enough to like, go on this journey and open this endeavor. So yeah, that's where you can find me. I also have a YouTube channel, which is Maggie Soul with two E's, where I talk a lot about these things. And my main thing is like, I just don't want people to feel alone. Like, I just want people to know that they're loved unconditionally and they're not alone for however they're feeling, if they grew up like me. And so, yeah, what I try to do is help people heal. So, my business is kind of like a merge between life coaching, energy healing, and it's really just if you feel any sort of negativity or illness or depression or anything that you don't want to be tuning into in your life, I help you transition out of it and tune into your best life, and your best self. So, and a big thing that I do is called the Sunshine Boot Camp, which is really this like is finally if you were a victim of narcissistic abuse or whatever the situation was, finally bursting forth with your love and light and gifts and wholeness into the world like unabashedly, unapologetically after years of abuse. So yeah, that's what you do.
Very nice, very nice. So, entertainment is definitely a path where you have to face yourself and and do
Yeah.
that. But so is entrepreneurship. Many people will tell you it is like a self-development course all on its own. You have a really great thing that I'm going to share with the audience, which you offer a shame to spotlight call. And those are $99. So people can do that. I will put all of these links in the show notes. And also the very best way to get all of this information is by signing up to the Imperfect Adulting email community, because then it comes right into your email box and you can just click on the link. So that's the best way. Now I'm going to ask you three questions. These are supposed to be rapid fire. So just for fun, I ask the questions and then you answer quickly, and they're not related to anything. It's just fun. All right. What is something that no matter what time of day or night it is, you could absolutely geek out on for like 30 minutes that would be like unexpected for people? What's something that you could absolutely geek out on?
Um, I mean, dancing, like I love dancing. I feel like I could geek out on that spirituality for sure. And also just like species. Like I just am always in awe of the universe and all of like the animals and plants and flowers. And I think I could just geek out on that for a long time.
I
Yeah. Oh,
love that
and
answer.
movies. Movies
Movies?
too. I love movies. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, very cool. All right. So imagine for a second that you only for the rest of your life are going to get to take one trip, any place in the world, on vacation. But money and time is not an object. Where do you want to go?
Oh, good question. My first thought is Egypt. I've always wanted to go there and like have a spiritual experience and visit the pyramids and learn more about that. So yeah, I think Egypt.
Egypt. All right. I love that answer. That's very cool. All right. So if you were going to be a contestant on a game show or a person in a reality like TV show, right? Cast member on a reality TV show, what show would you choose to be on and why?
Oh my God. That is a good one. Oh my goodness, there's so many. Um, I can't like remember all of them right now, but I feel like Family Feud comes
Oh,
to
that's
my mind. Yeah, I really like Family Feud. Um, I don't know if in the moment, in the moment on the spot, you're like, can I think of all the things like what to
yeah.
say? But yeah, maybe Family Feud. I think that would be fun.
That's a fun show. It is fun to watch because, like, as an outsider, you're not under the pressure, you're not doing the things, and they're there. And you think to yourself, why? Why would you say that? The obvious answer is this, or sometimes,
Right.
So I would love to be the person serving people with like for like doing the work like for their research because they're the most ridiculous questions.
Yeah, exactly. And
They're
sometimes
the
the answers
most,
too.
yes,
Yeah, you're like, no,
yeah.
this should be number one. No, this. So yeah,
Absolutely. Very good.
yeah.
That's it, Maggie. Thank you very much for being a wonderful guest today on the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for listening today. I hope that you enjoy the show. And before I go, I want to encourage you to become a bigger part of the conversation. Obviously, subscribe wherever you're listening to the show. Listen to more episodes. That'd be great. Obvi again, please write a review and tell your friends about the show. That truly is a great help for getting the show in front of new people. Okay, but more fun for you yourself, head over to imperfectadulting.com and join the email community. You'll get some free stuff right away, and that way you'll begin to get the emails about the podcast. This includes the links for the special offers from the guests, and it's the only way to get that. Also, if you aren't in the mood to listen, I actually include an article directly in those emails. Whee! Now, if you love this and you crave more time with me, Amy, as a coach, a mentor, or just adultier adult, numero uno, check out The Village. If you have a story you want to share with the listeners, I'd love to hear from you. I have an open application. Just let me know you want it. And that's a wrap for today. Until next time, remember, the journey is the destination. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that, not me. Well, until just now, I did just say it. But what I want you to hear today is that if your adulting journey isn't going the way you expected, that may not mean that you're lost. It may just mean that you're on your way. This is Amy Stone, signing off. The Imperfect Adulting podcast is created and produced by Amy Stone and Amy Says So. Anything expressed on this show is offered as entertainment, and the views of the guests may not always represent the ideas and viewpoints of the host. That's me. Amy does not intend or hold herself out to provide professional advice or recommendations of any kind. In the end, you and you alone need to make those kinds of decisions based on your personal and individual situation, needs, circumstances, and comfort level.